his 101st product test is what popped off. And it was just crazy to see a massive Excel sheet based on like his performance of each test. To be honest, I can't answer that exactly, but what I do recommend now is people test at least one product per week. And I kind of have this method of pick a day that you want to launch a product test on. I typically tell people not to do it on Monday or Tuesday, but say you want to launch a product test every single Thursday. It's a pretty good amount of products per month. I would say minimum one per week. These past 12 months, I've been all on Meta. And my exact testing strategy is I like to have at least like 6 images. And that's the very first thing I would split test, just adding new images, higher quality images with copywriting. That usually produces a great lift in conversion rate. And actually, one thing to mention is it's CRO, conversion rate optimization, but the actual important metric is revenue per visitor, because you can actually increase your conversion rate and have a lower revenue per visitor. Because you can raise your price and have a lower conversion rate, but if you raise your price and people buy it as a higher rate, you can have a higher revenue per visitor than that. Your old price.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. So images first, and then again, everything above the added cart. And for all of my stores above the added cart, I have like 3 bullet points also going over the USPs. They're called like a listicle basically. I'll split test those next, and I'm only changing one variable at a time. So either product images or listicles. And then the biggest thing, honestly, one of the biggest tests I've had lately is split testing the product name. I actually just posted this on my Instagram story the other day. Like for example, In-N-Out, they sell, I don't know if you've had In-N-Out before, but they sell protein style burgers, which it doesn't add any more protein. It's just, there's no bun. So it's like, it's healthier, but they named it protein style. And if they would have named it no bun style, it wouldn't have converted as high. So your product name is very, very important and something I always split test.
True. Yeah. And I feel like that's an undervalued one. Like people don't ever really think to split test the product name, even though that's like pretty important. It's like really right at the top. And very true as well with the product images. I feel like people don't make their images compelling enough, even though people sometimes just look at the images, they scroll through. So you want to make sure you have your unique value propositions on there too. I totally agree with that. And also the last point you mentioned about the revenue per visitor, I'm glad you touched on that, because I mean, you're not running a CRO agency or anything, but I had an interview and conversation with one of my good friends, Samuel Hess, and he runs a huge CRO agency in Europe. Like he's worked with like billion-dollar brands.
Wow.
And some of like the pioneering e-com brands out there in Europe. And he said the exact same thing. He's like, I think conversion rate is actually a really bad metric to optimize for revenue per earnings per click or revenue per visitor. Like that's kind of how they measure things at that level. So that's really cool that you're thinking about that. My next question is, what do you think, whenever you were testing products initially and you found this winning product, how often were you testing products? That's my question.
Okay. So back then I wasn't tracking my product tests as I should. I didn't have I had an Excel sheet for like my product research, but I wasn't tracking how often I was testing. And I wish I did. There's someone, his name's Boreon. He used to track every single one of his tests, and his 101st product test is what popped off. And it was just crazy to see a massive Excel sheet based on like his performance of each test. So to be honest, I can't answer that exactly. But what I do recommend now is people test at least one product per week. And I kind of have this method of pick a day that you want to launch a product test on. I typically tell people not to do it on Monday or Tuesday, but say you want to launch a product test every single Thursday. That's a pretty good amount of products per month. I would say minimum one per week. And then in between Thursday and Thursday, you should be focusing on improving your skills as far as copywriting, website design, ad creatives. Those are the kind of the 3 biggest needle movers in my eyes. And instead of just randomly testing products, actually focus on improving your skills. That is much better in my opinion than just spinning the lottery wheel, testing, 20 products a month or something, which, is a strategy I've heard from people. They test like 5 products a day, which is just absolutely crazy to me. I always have the mindset of quality over quantity. maybe because it was just my budget of washing cars, I can only afford that. But yeah, I would say 1 a week is a pretty good pace. And then if you can double that 2 a week, you'll be moving the needle pretty quickly.
I like that. Yeah. I'm always curious because exactly like you said, there's so many different ways to do it. And there's people that are, I think at the highest level, people are testing a crazy amount of products, like at least people who are like all in on drop shipping. But I think people need to just be consistent. I think in general with like anything you do, just try to find out whatever is going to help you be consistent, like just stick to that. So a product a week, that's amazing.
Absolutely.
So whenever somebody would launch a product, how would you recommend, based on all your students as well and your success, how would you recommend launching a, let's say, branded dropshipping product on Meta? Like what would be your launch strategy there?
Okay. As far as the media buying?
Yeah, media buying, how many creatives, like what would you do?
So super, super simple. And I think it's also important to stick to one strategy. And before I even give my answer, there's no one right way to do media buying. I can get in arguments with people all the time about ABOs versus CBOs. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter. It's just about, again, being consistent, because every time you change a variable, then you're like questioning yourself like, oh, is it because I changed this or that? So I keep it consistent for all my tests, especially
Real quick, if you appreciate these clips and interviews that I put forward for you, then please make sure you use our Shopify link in the description to start your own Shopify business with an exclusive deal. And also make sure you check out akemulab.com for additional resources, free tools, guides, and just a lot of interesting stuff that will help your journey, even some software deals that are exclusive to akemulab.com. So make sure you do that and continue watching the video.
These past 12 months, I've been all on Meta. And my exact testing strategy is 1 CBO. And budget is always a personal question, but I always just do $50 per day. So 1 CBO, $50 per day. And then on the ad set level, I only have 1 ad set group that is targeting broad, so no interest at all. And then I usually test with the top 4. So USA, Canada, Australia, and United Kingdom. And you can interchange those if you want, or just focus on one, kind of up to you. And then as far as the ad level, I am only testing 6 creatives per launch, per round of testing. So I'll have 1 ad set with 6 ads, and I used to do 10 ads, but I recently read on I read Facebook's policies and their tips all the time. They're not always the best, but they did say they recommend having 6 ads per ad set. So I went from having 10 to just running 6 in each product launch.
Fire. I like that. That's super simple, easy to follow. I feel like $50 a day is reasonable.